This is another edition of MBC Exclusive. My name is Alinafe Mlamba. Joining me in this edition is the Director General of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA, Mr. Daud Suleman. Welcome to this edition.
Thank you very much.
You're a very busy person, and I'm glad that we're having you today after a very long time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here as well.
But first of all, tell us, as MACRA, how do you assess the current state of cybersecurity in the country?
Well, Malawi is in an infant stage in as far as digitalization is concerned. Our penetration has just moved from around 18% to about 34%. So you see that in the past 5 years or so, there's been tremendous growth and tremendous number of new people that have been introduced for the first time into the digital space. That on its own is both a good story and is also a risk. It's a risk because a lot of people that are coming into the digital space, into the cyber space for the first time, they're not fully aware of what are the do's and what are the don'ts. And consequently, you also get a lot of new systems that are based in Malawi that are also connecting and interfacing with the internet. That also is a good story, and it is also a risk. So, as far as the cyber security space is concerned, it is a necessary evil that we move with. So as we pushing for deepening of digitalization, we are also opening up the door to more cyber threats and more cyber attacks. So these are two things that we must balance at all times. More digitalization, and at the same time, a heightened awareness of cybersecurity, and also putting the necessary ring fence and the necessary legal and regulatory frameworks to protect the citizens.
Looking at the issue of internet control and governance that you have mentioned, there is quite an increase in the reliance of the internet. A lot of people are using the internet, as you've pointed out. Now, what are you doing to strike a balance now that the country is going towards the digitization agenda?
As we sit today, MACRA is running on two acts of parliament, the Communications Act of 2016, as well as the Electronic Transaction and Cybersecurity Act of 2016. So you see that between 2016 and 2024, there's quite a gap there. Things have changed. We are in a very dynamic digital world. There are new things that are always coming up. So the first thing that we are doing through the line ministry is to review our laws so that our laws become more cyber aware, and they become very relevant to the digital space. So the Communications Act is being reviewed and is being amended. We are targeting the July sitting. Out of the Electronic Transaction and Cybersecurity Act, we have pulled out a number of new bills, and one act has already passed, the Data Protection Act. So last year, Parliament passed the Data Protection Act. The Data Protection Act creates the first safety net around protection of citizens' data. Where are we processing our citizens' data? Where is it being hosted? And what sort of recourse is there should anything happen to someone who was holding citizens' data and they have violated that data? So we have that law. And then there's the other laws that we've sent out for public consultations, include the Cybersecurity Bill, which now defines how do we create a safe cyber Malawi. What sort of instruments should we have? So this law we're targeting July, and further to that, we also have what we're calling the Cyber Crimes Bill. Now, in the Cyber Crimes Bill, we have detailed what sort of crimes are there when people are using mobile phones or are using computers to attack or to destroy other people or other property or other systems.
Now, if you look at these laws,
yes,
are we looking at short-term or these are long-term laws?
These are long-term laws. Now, ordinarily what happens is that you have innovation that comes and pushes very, very quickly. And then you have regulation and laws that have to follow and react to the development. So the cybersecurity bill, the cyber crimes bill when you put it together with the Data Protection Act, you now have a solid cyber security regiment and a legal framework that now begins to set up that cyber protection for our people. Without this, you now have a situation where someone can hack my system, and if I go to the police, for the police to run after this guy, there is no law that is explaining what has happened, why that is a crime. So we are moving from that situation where we didn't have a problem with cybersecurity, but now, because of the deepened digitalization and the deepened internet usage, we now have a situation where we need to have a cybersecurity framework that is rigid and that is also reacting to global trends as well as the direction that the country has taken towards 2063.
As Macra, how did you react to the cyber threat that the Department of Immigration experienced this year?
So MACRA, under the Electronic Transaction and Cybersecurity Act, MACRA houses what we call the Malawi SET. SET stands for Computer Emergency Response Team. We are the first line of response in as far as cyber threats or cyber attacks are concerned in this country. What happened at immigration is regrettable, but as I mentioned, more and more systems that are connecting to the internet, it simply means that we are raising the risk of someone coming to touch and to play around with your system. So there are a number of safety nets that we need to put. Good password usage, ensuring that we have firewalls, ensuring that our networks are clean, but most importantly is that our staff members are practicing what we call good cyber hygiene. So the attack on the immigration system is not an isolated incident. There are attacks that are attempts to attack systems in Malawi that are happening at any point in time. So we have systems that monitor these attempts. We have systems that are able to alert us, and we're able to defray a whole lot of other systems that have been hackers have attempted to get into. So the attack at the immigration, not an isolated incident, but it is now part of our new world. We must get used to this.
Now, what measures have you put in place to ensure that the general public out there is sensitized on issues to do with the internet? Because the internet has to be a safe space.
So the first thing is what I've mentioned about the Data Protection Act. We are now operationalizing that law. We are recruiting about 10 people that are going to run that office. As these people begin to run that office, they are going to be meeting various stakeholders, including members of the general public, including state-owned organizations, ministries, as well as private companies, to ensure that anyone who is processing data has the minimum requirements in as far as security and compliance is concerned. As of now, a lot of people that are processing data or that have networks that are connecting to other networks, they may not have that sense of heightening the compliance in as far as the data protection is concerned. So Data Protection Act, the act was passed. We are now operationalizing. We are recruiting about 10 people. Further to that, there is the Child Online Policy, which the government of Malawi passed. And through MACRA, the First Lady is the ambassador for the Child Protection Act.
The media industry has seen a very strange trend, as we can put it, whereby you've been revoking licenses of some institutions. Why now?
The law is the law. The law has always been there. The current leadership under His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, one of the pillars in his administration is a rule of law. When we issue a license, we issue that license based on terms of conditions that must be followed. If any of those terms are not being followed, we have the powers to revoke the license. So it is not a God-given right that when you have a license, then you ignore the obligations that come with that license. So anyone who has obtained a license from the regulator is bound by the terms. So if you do not follow, we simply get our license back.
But don't you think the timing is a bit awkward, because this is the same government that is trying to foster a free press?
Actually, if you look at all the licenses that were revoked, you see that they were given ample time. The revocations were not heavy-handed. For you to get to a position where your license has been revoked, it's a process that takes over 10 months. So in 10 months, you have an opportunity to make good of whatever it is that the regulator has pointed out. And it is a back and forth process. If you are not satisfied with the decision of the regulator to revoke, the Communications Act gives you the right to go to the High Court to appeal the decision of the regulator. So you see that almost all the licenses that have been revoked, they've gone through that process. The owners of the licenses are fully aware of when the regulator started engaging with them, up until when the license was revoked. Even in the letter that we send out when we revoke, we also tell them that if you're not happy, go to the court. So we haven't seen anyone reacting to that, which means what has happened has been a fair process, and they themselves, the owners of the license, are fully aware that indeed the regulator has acted within his powers.
Don't you think this will in any way affect the right to information?
Actually, it enhances the right to information, because now what we have are compliant media practitioners, what we have are compliant licensees. That in itself strengthens the business side of the media sector. If we have people that are ignoring the very basics of a license terms, how sure are we that they are going to play fair in other things? So what we are doing is simply enforcing what is obtained in the license. And those that have been able to play by the rules, you can see that the sector is flourishing. And the exercise by the regulator is by no way an act of attacking the media. It is a way of enhancing the media.
In case you're just tuning in, this is MBC Exclusive with me, Alinafe Mlamba. My guest today is Daud Suleman, the Director General of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back. We're continuing our program with Daud Suleman, the Director General of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA. My name is Alinafe Mlamba. So continuing, much as it is the mandate of MACRA to ensure that license fees are being adhered to, does the same apply to those trying to play their part but on the internet space?
Anyone who obtains a license from MACRA gets the license with terms. So even those companies that Airtel, your TNMs, the MTL, Inc., Globe Internet, Access Telecommunications, Nyasa Mobile, all of those guys have a license and they have their terms. So we have actually revoked even courier licenses. We've actually revoked even telecommunication company licenses. There was G-Mobile, a license that was issued out. We revoked that.
In an event, I want to establish my own television station, but online. Do I have to come to you for a license?
No, you do not as of now. Because remember, I mentioned that our law is 2016. So in 2016, when this law was being built, streaming and online broadcasting, things like podcasting, they were never there. So these are things that are happening now. So as a regulator, we're taking note of that, and surely there's going to be a regulation that we're going to issue out so that we also control that, because the internet and online streaming and podcasting is a new innovation, is a new trend that is happening now, but it has the potential to actually injure the society. It has a potential to actually help disseminate more information. So as a regulator in the broadcasting sector, we have taken note of the developments around podcasting and online streaming, and surely we are working on a regulation that will come so that we also we have to put some lines in as far as online broadcasting is concerned.
Won't it seem like some sort of witch hunting, especially now that podcasting is beginning to flourish in Malawi?
You cannot enter into a sector and just have and expect no rules to apply. Then there is no civilization. There's no democracy. So the moment that you are assuming certain powers that you can reach out to people, everything that you say, people need to own that. And most importantly, is the quality of the information that we are pushing out. So online streaming, Facebook Live and what have you, that is becoming a popular space where people are able to reach out to a whole lot of people. But you must have control and you must be accountable for the information that you're giving out. You mustn't feed people wrong information. You mustn't misinform. You mustn't do disinformation. You must ensure that you are giving people quality information. So we're not going to be witch hunting people. All we're going to do is to ensure that we have a level playing field, but most importantly, we protect the citizens that are going to capture what you are broadcasting. So in that, you need to have a regulation. You cannot have an open space for everyone to just come and do whatever you want. That's not what democracy says, and that's not what development and civilization is all about. Civilization and democracy are based on rules and are based on laws.
A lot of cases of online fraud are being reported in the country. What measures have you put in place to ensure that there is security within this landscape, especially when it comes to regulation of the money?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that there are two laws that we've put out there for public consultations. If you go on our website, you actually see them. One is the Cyber Crimes Bill, and the other one is the Cyber Security Bill. These two laws are actually now defining and explaining what are the crimes that can happen around the digital space. Now, using those two laws, when they are passed, we will now be able to have the perpetrators of these crimes taken to the court, and they can be charged against those acts. But as we are moving as a country, I mentioned already that innovation is always going to be ahead of us as a regulator, as law enforcement. Therefore, all we need to do is to proactively engage with stakeholders and make sure that we are also raising awareness. So in raising awareness, it is very important for our people to fully understand that we are now in a digital space and there are now new digital threats that are coming towards us. As a government, we have put the safeguards, but at a personal level as well. Even kids that are 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, because these days they have access to smartphones. You give a kid, a 5-year-old kid, a smartphone, they know the logo for YouTube. They will know how to search Cocomelon and Daddy Shag, and they will be able to play that. But the moment that kid has gone into YouTube, that kid has access to the entire YouTube, including things that a 5-year-old should not see. So as parents, are we aware of what we can do to limit activities of our kids online? Are we aware of how we can monitor what sort of websites our children are being exposed to? Are we aware of who our kids are talking to when they get online? So this is why the child protection online policy is very, very important. And this is why the digital ambassadors are going to be very crucial carriers of message to go to rural areas, so that even those kids that are in the rural area, they must also begin to be aware. But one other important thing that we're doing with the Ministry of Education is that we are reviewing the primary school curriculum, public primary school curriculum, to introduce a subject that we're calling digital citizenship, so that even kids in public schools, they should begin to learn about digital citizenship. In secondary school in Malawi, we're introducing a computer programming language called Python as a subject.
Now, these computer studies have been there for a very long time. What do you think is the problem?
So the difference now is that we're not doing computer studies. Now we are introducing a skill, computer programming. It is very important for us to have kids that are coming out of secondary school with a digital skill. Because as I mentioned, we have now moved from a manual world, we are going into a digital world. In this new digital world, you have issues like AI, you have issues like big data. But in all of that, there is also a niche market, which is digital skills. The world now needs more digital skilled people than manual skilled people, because we are able to teach machines to do all sorts of things, but it's the digital skills that we are lacking. Therefore, as a country, we can be on purpose to produce the biggest number of exports of digital skills. How do you do that? You need to start teaching computer programming in secondary schools.
It is an open secret that our prisons have now turned into telecommunication centers. As a body, what are you doing to curb this?
As a regulator, we've been working with the Malawi Prison Service. We've been working with Mpamba and Airtel Money. We've also been working with the Reserve Bank of Malawi to ensure that we curtail the growth of the mobile money fraud, which is being perpetrated largely from the prisons of Malawi. The first thing that we are doing is that we have installed a platform which is called the Central Equipment Identification Register, SIA.
Is it yielding the desired results?
We have not yet gone live, but
when are you going to go live?
We are going live in the month of June or thereabout. Yes.
So we should expect Malawians to hear a different story from June.
Yes. But the machine does not work on its own. There is a regulation which is called the new SIM card regulation. So we will now require every Malawian to re-register their SIM card and their handset.
When is this happening?
It's also starting in June.
So all this will be a different story coming in June.
It will be. Because now with the system, we are now able to track and to block very suspicious operations, suspicious SMSs, suspicious calls, and we can even zone in on the area. So we know where the prisons are. So we've mapped where the prison is. And all calls that are originating from around that area, this system is able to profile and to see which ones are suspicious. And most importantly is the issue of re-registering the SIM cards. Because the biggest issue here has been outsiders smuggling SIM cards into prisons. So you see that even in a bottle top for Coca-Cola, you can fit in about 20 SIM cards. And with one handset, this guy will play around with 20 SIM cards and assume 20 different profiles of people and scheme unsuspecting citizens. With the new regulation, we will require that every handset and every SIM card must be re-registered.
With that, we've come to the end of this edition of MBC Exclusive with the Director General of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA, Mr. Daud Suleman. My name is Alinafe Mlamba. Until next time, goodbye.